Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Wild Rift Doctor. We have another 2 games for you today. First of which is a Gragas, I believe, Baron lane in gold. So this is a gold Gragas Baron lane game. It is from gold to platinum. This is the last promo match to platinum, so we're seeing kind of like the gold platinum border. And then we're going to see a Seraphine Diamond support game. The Diamond Seraphine support game is not in high quality. It's in 480p, unfortunately. But this person did submit it ages ago before I kind of stipulated that it needs to be 720p and plus. This will be the last video that I very likely choose a low quality submission for. Unless, of course, there are massive restrictions to a lot of you submitting that mean you can't submit high quality videos. But I just think for the purposes of the video, it's much nicer for the viewers if we have a cleaner, at least 720 plus style. Also, if you could submit live gameplays, if you could record games live, it would be better. I will not say no to replays. This Gragas game is a replay, but I just feel like I can give you more information if I'm able to see the buttons that you're pressing and it's live gameplay. But let's get on with it. Let's have a look at this Gragas game then. And actually, because I've realized that the last game was extremely long video, I like to kind of analyze games in 1.5 times speed. So you'll probably see everything go a little bit quick, but that's good enough. I'm just going to double check that we have our pen ready to go. So give me 1 second. All right, you guys should be able to see this now. I'm hoping you can. If not, never mind. Right, so let's take a look at Steve. He's playing into Garen. So this is a lane that is relatively okay for you. Now, the way that you play into Garen lanes as a Gragas is that you ideally just want to max your second ability. When the Garen comes towards you, you just slap them with an empowered basic attack, and Garen can't really do it. But luckily, this Garen started the worst ability possible. He started his spin, which just means you can very easily abuse him in this matchup. If you'd taken Drunken Rage here, which is your second ability, you might have got a bit more work done. Right now, he's running with Barrel and Body Slam, which is okay, but that's usually what I'd associate with like an AP Gragas start. I couldn't see what item that he started. If he started Amplifying Tome, then maybe it would make sense. But if I'm starting like full-on... I mean, he just missed the Body Slam there. If I started full-on Tank Gragas, I just like to go for the Drunken Rage into melee matchups, mainly because it just is much better for trading. So at this point, the wave is kind of pushing towards you. Yeah, I'd go and pick up the what they're called, the honey fruit. This is good because the wave is now pushing towards Steve at this point. I'm not going to call him his full name. A little bit of an awkward trade there. Whenever you see Garen kind of walk towards you, you have to kind of respect it. And I would start channeling Drunken Rage, even just for the damage reduction. I know you can't always manage, you won't always manage to get the channel basic attack off, but you just need to be a little aware that, oh my word, he's 5. Yeah, he just disrespected the level 5 here. There wasn't really any reason for you to step up in the lane there. You really should have just sat in the tower and farmed in the tower. The fact that you stepped up towards the Garen invited him in for a fight, and you just didn't respect the levels. I can always 100% tell you that this right here, this indicator on the enemy champion, is the most useful indicator in the Baron lane and even in the mid lane. Actually, to be honest, anywhere, any laning phase, that this is the most useful indicator that you'll ever have. If that little bar on Garen is close to 5, I am 100% backing away if I'm on low HP. So for me, I think Steve just unfortunately disrespected the level 5 of Garen, and at this point, like that's the way that you trade against Garen. You channel your Drunken Rage, you use your Body Slam, and he can't actually trade against it very effectively. And then you just use your Barrel, your little first ability on exit, to allow you to escape from the trade. But right now, this early laning phase was fine. I think he started the wrong abilities into Garen. I would always recommend that you start that ability there, the Drunken Rage, and then you max it. And then he just disrespected the levels. But if you can get used to using this ring as a good indicator about when power spikes are going to hit. So for instance, like, you know that Garen's power spike at level 5 is insane. So as soon as Garen is closing in on level 5, I play super defensive. Like, I back off almost all the time. Good rotation. I think this is exactly what you needed to do, because obviously the Infernal Drake is up and that's Shyvana. There is a good opportunity to try and catch Shyvana with the explosive cast right now. I'm not really sure what your Vi's doing. She's kind of chilling. I suppose that you guys are covering for her and she's getting a good clear of the jungle right now. What I would do to really sort of make this as easy as possible is pull the Drake out, but you did start it, and unfortunately that caused a little issue. I would have explosive cast here. That's nice, but really wasn't placed excellently. And you get taken out eventually. I don't really know. I need to have a look at what's going on the rest of the fight. Looks like Jin is able to pick up a couple of kills. Twisted Fate kind of kiting back relatively nicely. Lux. Yeah, okay, they did enough work here to stop the Infernal Drake going down. Really, when Shyvana uses her ult in, you want to try and use your explosive cast to knock her away, because if you can keep her off your carries, you're going to keep them as safe as possible. But I wouldn't have started the Drake, not with your jungler there especially. Also, starting an Infernal Drake versus an enemy team that is full, that is like full HP, and you just saw Shyvana reset, that was obviously a little bit of an error. So you're going, this is interesting now, you're committing to the top, to the tower. So you're trying to say, okay, I don't really care about the Infernal Drake. I'm kind of hard committing to the tower in this sense, which is okay. I would say as tank Gragas, if you are playing tank Gragas, committing to the tower, you kind of have to do that once you've got points in your Drunken Rage. If I'm playing tank Gragas, I usually will rotate. Now, it looks like they picked up the Seraphine. Shyvana jumped into the fight over here, and they get the kill. So that's pretty nice, actually. Now, this is a good opportunity for you to go either help or just go for that bot lane tier 1. I like that you've got a cheeky little steal. You might have to be worried here. Yeah, Garen's just going to... Oh, nice explosive cast, but it wasn't quick enough. As soon as... honestly, as soon as you stole that... Oh, my goodness gracious. This is ridiculous, this fight. As soon as you stole that... Oh, my God. Are they going to get it? They stole it. They just walked in and smited it. Oh, no. That's grim. They just walked in and smited the Infernal Drake away. That's awful, dude. That was a very scrappy Infernal Dragon fight, unfortunately. They were very low HP. I think as soon as you stole the Rift Scuttler, I probably would have just explosive cast Garen away. You don't really want to get in an elongated fight with Garen, especially when he's ahead. But this is a good. You've come in, you've pushed the wave. I think at this point, just commit to trying to take the tower as quickly as possible. They're covering relatively nicely. It's difficult for me to say. I think your decision-making has been okay so far. I think as a tank Gragas, you should rotate for objectives. I don't think you have strong tower-taking ability, especially versus a Garen who's going to have a slightly stronger tower-taking capabilities. But overall, I think you made the right decision to go and claim that wave and try and push before the Infernal Dragon. But I think had you not died... and you just explosive cast Garen away a lot earlier in that trade where you ended up dying, your team might have actually got the Infernal Dragon. I think you dying there meant that your team didn't have a good enough frontliner for the Infernal Dragon, and unfortunately that did mean that you ended up losing. So if Garen had joined the fight, it would have been even worse, but Garen decided to not join the fight for some reason. But, I do think that you just needed to be much more respectful of Garen's execute potential. You've got to remember that Garen's ultimate is true damage, and so even as a tank, Garen's ultimate is going to deal a crap ton of damage to you. Now, I don't know what Garen is doing on that side of the map. Like, there is a wave stacked up. I think you're making the better decisions here. You're keeping yourself roaming between the mid lane and the Baron lane. You have the red buff now as well, which is nice. It's going to help you take the tower much more effectively. Good job just clearing those mini waves. I would commit. I mean, obviously, you just see the Garen moving down here. A couple more basic attacks for another plate might have been okay. But I have no idea what this Garen's doing for the most part. It looks like your bot lane is kind of hard smurfing it. Jhin overextended like crazy and dies. But it looks like your bot lane, for the most part, is doing really well. I think with red buff, you should be pretty aggressive on Garen. Like, with red buff, you should be pretty aggressive on Garen. You're also going for very long body slam attempts. My advice to you would be, versus these matchups, is to not go for the ridiculously long body slam attempts. Try and go for shorter ones that you're just using to kind of disrupt the first ability charge from Garen. I think by going for the really long ones, you're setting yourself up for failure, and you don't really need to make those really long ones. Yeah, unfortunately. Oh, that was a really nice explosive cast. That was a beautiful little outplay. I don't know if you intended on doing it or not, but that was really, really nice. And you also pick up the Thornmail. So this itemization is odd to me. Thornmail second doesn't strike me as necessary versus this comp. I think Bramble Vest versus a Yasuo is pretty good. It's fine. But it doesn't strike me as necessary to finish the Thornmail. In fact, I almost never finish Thornmail because it's not a particularly gold-efficient item. On tank Gragas, I much prefer getting the Bramble Vest than actually going towards either an Iceborne Gauntlet or just some other kind of a tank item that you need. So I think in this case, finishing the Thornmail maybe not the best item decision that you could have taken, and I think realistically would have been better to go for the Iceborne Gauntlet because you want to be a relatively solid damage threat. I like this. You kind of zoned the Ezreal out. Unfortunately, the Jhin wasn't able to convert on the kill. Don't think the Ezreal kills you here as long as you're using your abilities and getting a bit of HP back. But nonetheless, good little play there. I think you're making good map rotations. I think when you play a tank, one of the biggest skills that you need to be aware of is about when to not rotate out of your lane. And I think you're doing a good job of rotating out of your lane right now. You're not a split pusher as tank Gragas, especially because you haven't gone for the Iceborne Gauntlet build. So you're clearly not going to be taking towers too quickly. So I'm liking that you are trying to make moves across the map as much as physically possible, and you're being a relatively solid frontline from your team. A little bit slow here. I like the teleport to try and get yourself onto the dragon fight as quickly as possible. Like, one of the best ways to shut down Shyvana is stopping her from taking the dragon, and your team does secure it. So that was actually a really intelligent teleport. I think that was really good. I think as a frontliner, you can make those kind of decisions, and I actually like that you bought the teleport this early on. I think it's a massively underrated boot upgrade, and I think especially in lower elos, people don't really make the best use out of it. But I think that teleport was really key to your team's victory around that fight, and you're clearly out-rotating Garen despite losing to him in the laning phase. So actually your map movements are really sensible, and it's clear that you're keeping an eye on the map, which is one of the skills that is very difficult for a lot of lower elo players to get to grasp with. They often have these like horse blinkers on for their lane, and they think that they think that the game is either won or lost in the laning phase, so they'll always blame, you know, enemy laners for going 0-3 or 0-4 or something when they actually have done absolutely nothing to impact the map. And so one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you is be willing to impact the map. Now, you've gone for Haunting Guys here, which is actually an interesting adaptation and a build that I genuinely do think has legs. Haunting Guys does give you an element of increased damage, 10%, and you're expected to stay in the fights for longer. It would be interesting to do the math between Haunting Guys and Iceborne Gauntlet as kind of like a consistent damage output, but I think versus this comp, Iceborne Gauntlet would have been a good pickup. Loving the engage there, backing out. You're playing frontline really well. I get the idea behind the explosive cast there. I think you were trying to stop the Seraphine from having a good engage, and I think it did end up working out pretty nicely. Good follow-up onto the Vi ultimate there. And I think you're playing frontline really well. I do think you're playing frontline really well, clearly communicating with your team. And now there are pings for Baron. This is a risky Baron to try and go for, but I do think you could very effectively set up a catch, which you can see the Jhin and the Lux are doing. Doesn't look like the enemy team fell for it, though, so this maybe could have been a Baron attempt coming through. The enemy team didn't look like they were willing to respond to the Baron pit, but overall, I think you're doing a pretty good job of just controlling the map. You're playing frontline really well, and I think learning to play frontline is a really important skill in Wild Rift. Learning to play frontline is something that not even some master and grandmaster players understand how to do correctly, and it's just threatening the front of a team fight as much as you can. So I like this from you. Now what you're doing is going to create pressure in the bot lane. With the Elder spawning in 30 seconds, creating pressure in this bot lane is going to draw the attention of the enemy. You are kind of relying on your team to have a good setup here. Looks like there is a bit of a fight going on in the mid lane, but I think you obviously made a good decision not to rotate for that because it didn't amount to anything, and you're going to pick up a free turret heading into this next fight. Now, Vi, I think Elder should be the setup here for your team. Your team is a little focused on this side of the map. At this point, like, especially with the Shyvana, I would absolutely be kind of trying to focus heavily on the Elder Dragon. So Elder would definitely be my focus at this point in the game. Okay. Frontline, you're engaging by yourself here. That's a little risky, honestly. A little risky, but you are tanky enough at this point in the game to kind of get away with it. Garen clearly has not built tank. Garen clearly has not built tank in this game. Nice explosive. That was a really nice explosive cast because it brought the Yasuo into the firing line. A double kill for Lux support somehow. Could have gone very horribly wrong, though, because it looks like the Yasuo was able to kind of get a lot of damage down as well as the Shyvana, but your team just about managed to get themselves on top of that fight and get a clean ace. So you got a nice ace, which picks up the Elder, and that should be enough to secure the game. Like, Elder Dragon in its own right is a ridiculously strong objective to take. And yeah, honestly pretty good overall. I'd say that your builds are interesting. I like that you've got Iceborne Gauntlet now. You're obviously going to deal a lot of damage, and I actually quite like the idea of your build. I don't like the idea of finishing Thornmail. I prefer just having the Bramble Vest. I think Thornmail is an item that you might complete later on into the game versus like very heavy auto-attack based AD carries. But you're not going into a very heavy auto-attack based AD carry, so the Thornmail is getting like less value for you. But I like the Haunting Guys addition. I actually think the Haunting Guys is a relatively cool addition to this build. It's just giving you 10% damage bonus, which is nice, especially as a tank Gragas increases your threat. And it doesn't matter that your scoreline is 1, 4, and 12. You're actually doing your job really well right now. Like, you're clearly doing your job and focusing on just being that big, beefy frontliner. And actually now, with that Iceborne Gauntlet, you're a relatively good damage. A great cask. I love that. That was a beautiful little bit of play just to take out one of the most important members of the enemy team. And at this point, I have no idea what this Garen's build is, but he is paper. Beautiful setup. Really nice little catch there. I think you're playing well below your actual true skill level right now. I'm seeing the hallmarks of someone who is actually quite an intelligent player about how to play the map, knows their limits. I think the only, like, honestly, beyond the laning phase, I think your decision making has been really good. Like, you've played that front line really well. You've got really good catches. I think you just have to be a bit more respectful and notice those power spikes of the enemy in the laning phase. But honestly, there's not much extra from that game alone that I can really give you that's going to suddenly make you better. Let's have a look at the builds. As I said, really cool build. I like the addition of the Haunting guys. I don't think you need to finish up the Thornmail most of the time, but I like the addition of the Haunting guys. It's pretty good. But overall, a pretty solid build. I think the main feedback for me is you need to make sure you respect enemy power spikes in the laning phase way more. Like, make sure you respect enemy power spikes in the laning phase like way more. I think you made some silly errors versus the Garen's level 5, which is a very obvious power spike to play around, but you probably won't do that again, having reviewed the footage. I think you actually had some really sensible decisions on the map. I loved the pickup of the teleport early on to impact that Drake fight and really have, be the winning factor there. I think you have a good understanding of how to play frontline. I think you understand how to zone the enemies away, when to look for engages. I think you had some really good picks. Your map movements were excellent. You clearly were paying attention to the minimap frequently. And I think you've got the real foundations to be a very strong Baron laner, especially a tank Baron laner. You've got a lot of those skills that are quite difficult to teach. You seem to have them quite naturally. So this is a really good game, and I think you are probably deserving of a higher elo than you've got. Despite the scoreline maybe not looking fantastic, you did your job really well. Like, you did your job in this game really well. So, don't let the fact that you've got no badges or your scoreline looking weird, dissuade you. I think you actually did your job relatively well. There was only a small few things where I think maybe rotating early to the dragon, obviously casking Garen away immediately and making sure you were there for the Infernal, because I think that you dying before the Infernal just meant that your team were too low. They didn't have a front line to tank the dragon, which ended up giving it away. If you were there, that extra damage might have been able to, allow you to take the dragon more easily. But a couple of early game errors, but beyond the early game, you actually played really nicely. And I think, you've got a good foundation to be a very good player from here on out. I expect to see you in Emerald and potentially even Diamond soon. All right, this is a Seraphine support game. We're in Diamond. It looks like I'm gonna kind of get through the game. We're gonna go into 1.5 playback speed. Unfortunately, as you can see, it's 480p. I can't get it into any higher than 480p. I don't want to not do this review though, because as I said before, this person submitted it a long time ago, but I will in the future be looking for 720p and above, because it just makes it a little more awkward. But we're reviewing Seraphine support here, and the Seraphine support is going into a Ashe. And who's the enemy support? Is an Ashe and a somebody. We'll have to wait and see. I might have to go. Let's go back in the VOD and have a look. I think it was Ashe Alistair. So this is a laning phase that you should be able to win as long as you're respecting the Alistair engage range. So I like this. This is good. What I would say about Seraphine support is you can start two abilities. You've started your first ability clearly, but actually a lot of Seraphine support like to start this ability here. You channel two of them before you come to the laning phase, and then you have an instant route at level 1 in the laning phase, which can be a good way to kind of get an early kill. But this one overall is fine, especially if you've got an AD carry that's not particularly strong at level 1 like the Jinx. So we get first blood. Your team picks up first blood here. Just trying to zone. I like this way. I think you need to be as aggressive as possible whilst respecting the Alistair engage range here. You also have to remember that pre-5, Ashe is not exactly going to have a super ridiculous damage output. So again, I want to see you step up way more in the laning phase here. I think you're being too scared of Alistair. Step up and just look for as much poke as possible. You have the range advantage. Like this, like you have the range advantages. I like that. You didn't respect the Alistair engage, but again, like Ashe can't really follow up easily. So even if Alistair catches you, Ashe can't really follow up to a huge extent. Do like that you procced the honey fruit though. That's something that a lot of people should learn to do. If you can take the honey fruit safely, you force the enemy to take it in a situation where they may be full HP and they're not going to get value out of it. I like that a lot. Great roam. This is an interesting roam, actually. Interesting roam to try and impact this blue side invade. Have to see if you can actually do anything with it. I think unfortunately, my view about these types of roams is that you've committed a lot. You've lost a significant amount of lane pressure, and you've lost a significant amount of experience. I don't think the roam was necessarily bad, but having to roam that far across the map, most of the time, that was, okay, Ash flashed, probably unnecessarily. Most of the time, when I'm a support and I'm on the opposite side of the map to something happening, I will probably not make that level of roam because I'm losing so much in the laning phase. Like, I could have used that time to push the lane in and go for a tower take, or at least kind of like put pressure on the enemy AD carry. So I'm not entirely sold on like making plays that are like cross map like that. If you have to walk all the way down here, by the time that you get there, by the time that you first seen it, by the time that you get there, it's probably over. So I like the idea of the roam. I like that you're willing to respond to plays on the map, but you probably would have got more value by staying in lane and threatening the Ashe a little bit more, trying to force her away from the tower, deny her experience, deny her farm. That's the way I would have seen this. If it was happening in my blue side jungle, I'll of course have made that roam. But roaming all the way across the map for an early game play like that does unfortunately mean that you end up losing quite a lot, you know, in terms of map and the value. Now, it looks like the Olaf is starting this by themselves. I do like the zoning. That's I think just unfortunately the Alistair caught you out a little bit there. Luckily your team was in space. I like, yeah, really good Seraphine ultimate here. Honestly, actually you played around the Kennen ultimate fantastically, and I love that you were just setting up, you were lining up that Seraphine ultimate to bounce off the Garen to kind of like then loop it through into the Tribrush. I don't know if you intentionally did it so that it was going to go, I'm going to show you on the map, it went from here to here. I don't know if you intentionally did it like that, but prioritizing this area as a bounce location was super smart and a really, really great idea, because that was the obvious exit path for the majority of the enemy. Alistair just trying to be as aggressive as possible, but Jinx should get out of it. So that was a really nice, honestly, a really nice setup. You're going for Rod of Ages first. I'm not going to question the item build because it's clearly an item build that you were trying to be more of a solo carry as a support. I would say that the higher that you go, these more greedy support builds become less valuable because you do need to support the higher skill teammates that you get as they go up in levels. So, you know, going something like the Redemption early on for a dragon fight is like a nice addition to have for your team. But I like the Rod of Ages in this particular scenario because it's going to try and capitalize on the strength of what you've got already. Picking up the sweeper this early on is nice. Just having the sweeper ready to go and clearing out wards. I love that Jinx has stayed top lane, by the way. It means you're going to get first tower of the game. The entire enemy team is rotated for this Rift Herald. If I were you, I would, yeah, I mean, ult here, but I would honestly just not commit to the fight. I would run. If I were you, I would just run. Just like ping back, spam back for your team and run. Quite honestly, I think you've got that in your mind right now. There's no point forcing a 4v5. No point forcing a 4v5. It's just not going to happen. So I think this is the correct decision for you. I think just backing off and just making sure that you're not getting too heavily involved in that fight. I didn't mind the ultimate use. I think the ultimate use was okay. But yeah, backing off in that fight was the correct decision. And at the end of the day, you lost a couple of members, but Jinx ended up getting 2 towers in the top lane. So that's really, really good. Goodness gracious, the quality of this this video is a little low, but look, I'm trying my best with what I've got. So I think that was a good decision from you to not commit to a 4v5 fight. I think you're clearly showing you know when you can and can't look for engages here. Nice follow up. I think you kind of have to just go for this now. Yep, nice enough. Get caught out by the Alistair. Good. I mean, the flash, you were probably never getting saved with that flash. So I get the idea of the flash, but you probably were never getting out in that scenario because if you watch the map, the Kennen had rotated up. So you were like, that flash was, like that flash felt a little bit to me. I don't think it was worth it to use it. But regardless, it was a reaction flash to get out of the engagement. Now we have another dragon coming up. Getting mid lane priority should be something that you should look to do here. So just with the Ziggs, pushing this mid lane up as much as possible. Do respect the engage of the Kennen and the Alistair, though. If you guys get caught out before the fight, then the dragon, then you probably end up losing the dragon. They have committed pretty heavily. Now, you need to be careful here. Don't get too close to the Alistair. Wait for your team to be the front line for you. Wait for the Pantheon. Okay, nice ult, but you got a little too close. Honestly, exhaust the Kennen. I think you used the exhaust elsewhere. Exhausting the Kennen in his ultimate is absolutely necessary. The only reason you take exhaust is because it shuts the Kennen down and shuts the Kennen's ultimate down. Honestly, I think the best thing that you could do was wait for the Pantheon engage and use your Seraphine ultimate on the Pantheon's drop location. You got way too close to the fight there. You don't need to be that close to Seraphine. Wait for the Pantheon to engage and then ult off the ult off the Pantheon's drop location. Too close to the fight, honestly. Seraphine, you need to play much further back. You are so squishy. You're one of the lowest HP targets in the entire game. So you just need to be very careful versus like a heavy engaged team like this. Nice little attempted catch on the Ashe here. Should be able to pick off the Alistair, which is really nice. Yeah, good little cutoff. I think you used the Vision Blast Cone really nicely. Your team's kind of going heavy in here. I think you do need to be a little careful. But alas, it looks like you're going to end up in a fine spot. But yeah, just play a little bit. The way you played the first dragon fight was beautiful. The way you played the second dragon fight was a little in. That range that you use, like you have really long range abilities in Seraphine. Make use of that range. Don't make you an easy target because you can be a real game changer in these team fight situations. And the next dragon is going to be Infernal. So you're clearly going to have to make sure that you're positioning properly for that particular dragon. Again, don't disrespect the Olaf here. I like that you just backed off. Oof. You just need to make sure that you're not disrespecting their. You need to, yeah. We exhausted Kennen. Did we exhaust the Kennen there? I think we might have exhausted the Kennen, which meant that his ultimate didn't really do much damage. So well placed exhaust onto the Kennen, I think. Nice flash. You get the kill onto Olaf, which is great. Ashe kind of inting. You didn't need to be that far up, but if your team converts, it doesn't matter. I think you didn't need to be that far up, but it obviously baited Ashe in hard enough so that your team was able to clean up a significant number of those kills. So that was kind of like I int for my team situation, which I do. I do that a lot. I int for my team situations do happen a lot when I'm playing the game. For the most part, though, good early. 1 second, I was replying to someone. Good early kind of like thought processes on the map. I think you've been pretty solid in understanding when you shouldn't be looking to fight. And obviously playing around your cooldowns as much as physically possible. Just think you just need to be a little more careful about your teamfight positioning. You have had both instances of great and bad teamfight positioning in this game. Have you gone Font of Life on Seraphine? I like that, actually. I haven't used it yet, but I like Font of Life as an option on Seraphine. You do generally tend to land a lot of AoE damage on the team. So Font of Life Seraphine, I think you're obviously, if you're playing Font of Life Seraphine, you are limiting maybe some of your damage in the game. So maybe like the Rod of Ages build would be good if you went into like more of a supportive build afterwards. Okay, so keeping her in front of now, you've fought the Camille's on the wrong side of the map. You kind of forced the Kennen out. She's teleporting here. They're a little bit slow. Like, back off. Get behind your team here. Way behind your team. Nice ultimate. Really, really nice ultimate. This is much better team fight positioning. Playing like an artillery from the back line and just doing what you can. Like, end of the day, if your team ends up dying, there's not much you can do about it. I just really love that you are playing that more artillery style play style. Don't think you needed to flash there, actually. I think you could have kept vision maybe for the Jinx, but regardless, it was better to play it safe than sorry. That was much better teamfight positioning for the Seraphine. Like, you have such long range abilities, there isn't any real reason for you to be in like melee range, so much better. And yeah, the Harmonic Echoes is nice. So Rod of Ages Harmonic Echoes, that sounds like a pretty solid build if you're going for like a Font of Life Seraphine build. And yeah, he said, my bad flash. Yeah, I didn't think you needed to flash there, actually. I think you could have... you had stasis as well. Interesting that you're going stasis. It feels like a very greedy Seraphine build. I think, you know, for the most part, I would always go Redemption on my supports because it's such a huge teamfight tool, especially versus like a lot of AoE damage with the Kennen. However, I understand why, because you are quite a big damage threat in this game. And so therefore the stasis maybe can bait the Camille in or bait the Kennen in, and it'll keep you safe during these teamfights. But you are putting a lot of pressure on your shoulders to perform in these teamfight situations. Whereas with Redemption, you're kind of helping facilitate the rest of your team. Little bit of a awkward ultimate. And again, you've got to be very careful about when you use Seraphine ultimates. I'm not going to talk about missing skill shots because we all do it. But you just need to be very careful about using Seraphine ultimates in situations. Now, this is a good use of the stasis because you've baited the Olaf in enough. Now that, you know, you'd want your team to convert on it, which it looks like they're able to. So there's the stasis getting immediate value for you, which is nice. Yeah, I like it. I mean, end of the day, you don't have to play the game the way that people tell you to play the game. You play the game the way that gets you wins. And clearly, this kind of Rod of Ages stasis Seraphine build is working out for you. Team going for Baron. You have a big man advantage, no Kennen. This is a really safe opportunity to go for the Baron, and I think your team are making the correct decision. I don't know what Alistair thought he was going to achieve. Nice stasis from the honestly, Pantheon. That was really, really good. Just baits the Camille in there, and I think Jinx is at that stage in the game where she's going to start popping off now. Just saw the value of Redemption there as well, keeping the Alistair safe. Although, it is kind of lost for the enemy team now. So we have an Elder Ocean spawning relatively soon. So that's going to be a team fight that you're going to want to set up for. I do like that you're just getting mid priority here. This is something that is very, very good to do when you're trying to claim dragon control, just pushing that mid lane in all over and over again. You have your ultimate up and available. Just sitting behind that Garen and then Pantheon is the play here, looking for that correct angle to land a good ultimate. I probably wouldn't have been too amiss to try and use it here. Like, use it, time, nice timing, and you caught the Ashe off the back of it as well. That is really nice. Like, just perfectly timed, because you bounced it beautifully on towards the Ashe, and that's going to be the game over situation, I think. Honestly, again, like, pretty solid game overall. I think just some of the main things to look at here is teamfight positioning. Just some teamfight positioning things that you're probably going to want to work on. But apart from that, like, really good, really good gameplay. And I think you are very sensitive about choosing when and when not to fight. There is 2 good games here, 2 good examples of how to play your respective roles, and this was a good example of great Seraphine gameplay. Just, you know, you are an artillery support. You want to be right at the back. You want to be bouncing the ultimate off your allies to get these big impact moments. And I actually think if anyone's looking to learn to play Seraphine, this was a good example of how to play Seraphine correctly. All right, guys, thank you for watching Wild Rift Doctor. We had 2 good examples of games today, so there wasn't much like massively negative stuff to break down. I'll try and find a bit more of a negative one to break down. I'm going to do a few episodes this week because I'm going away on holiday, so I'm going to have way more episodes of Wild Rift Doctor than I usually would, because I'm just trying to get through a lot of the submissions. But if you want to submit, the instructions are in the description below, and I hope you enjoy.